I combed through the entire Philadelphia Eagles roster. So I'm going to break down for you guys real quick on a 1 to 10 scale of rating each and every position group for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then once we understand what our roster looks like, we can go out and try to find some value in the draft. And if that opportunity presents itself, we can move up and pick a guy we want. Or we could stay pat where we're at depending on how the board falls. So the quarterback position I think is pretty solid with Jalen, Pickett, and Greer. I give it an 8 out of 10. The wide receiver group, I give a 9. With A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Devontae Parker, it's a pretty solid group. Kellen Moore runs a lot of 11 personnel. That means 3 wide receivers. So the Eagles are going to need a very solid number 3 receiver. Can Parker be that guy? I'm not sure. But the Eagles probably aren't going to look at wide receiver early in the draft. Maybe a little later in the draft, try to find some value. Running back, I give it a 7. Only because Saquon Barkley has been hurt previously, and there's not a solid number 2 running back on the roster. This could be another position in the 5th and 6th round the Eagles look to address. And then we move on to tight end. I give it a 7. Dallas Goedert has been good, but not great. He's regressed pretty significantly over the last 3 years. So in 2021, he was a 90 PFF grade. 2022, 78.2, and last year went all the way down to 71. He is 29 years old, so he's not super old, but he's starting to regress considerably. So maybe in the later parts of the draft, maybe a tight end that has good hands could be a good spot. Then left tackle, 9. Mailata was 3rd ranked out of 81 possible tackles last year. Lane Johnson is a 9 as well, 13 out of 81. And then center, Cam Jurgens is going to be his first full year at the center position now that Jason Kelce has retired. I give him a 7 as well. He still has a little bit to prove. And right guard is a very big position of need for the Eagles. Currently, the way the roster is constructed, I give it a 2. So that's a position we need to fill, maybe in the 2nd round, maybe in the 4th round, because the Eagles do not have a 3rd round pick currently. And then left guard, Landon Dickerson, very, very talented guy. I give him an 8 out of 10. He's ranked 17 out of 79 in the guard position. Then we move on to the defense. Cornerback, I give it a 6. Bradbury was trash last year. Look at this rating, 100 out of 127 possible cornerbacks. Terrible. Even Slay, 55 out of 127. He's 33 years old too. But the Eagles have like 11 cornerbacks currently on the roster. I mean, can one of these guys step up and be a starter for the Eagles long term? I have no idea. Depending on the value, and if there's a guy like Quinyon Mitchell that's still available in that 12 to 15 range, maybe the Birds move up and take him. There's not a ton of difference making corners, but there's a lot of guys I like Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry and Arnold, the corners from Alabama. There's some really good corners. So we'll have to see how the board falls, and maybe we'll trade up to get a corner. And then at safety, we have C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. Blankenship was pretty good last year, ranked 19 out of 95. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he's got a big name in Philly, but if you look at his PFF grades, they're not very good. He hasn't been over a 70 in like 4 seasons. So he's a slightly above average safety. He brings some grit to the defense that I like, but he's not necessarily the best safety in the world. So I give the safety position a 7, maybe even a 6.5. Then we move on to linebackers. This is, if there was negative ratings, I would give it a negative. The way their roster is made up right now, the linebacker position is an abomination. But Nakobe Dean, even though he's undersized and he's been hurt a lot in his time with the Eagles, he had pretty good PFF grades in the short time that he played last year. 80 against run defense and an 83 pass rush grade. So when he's on the field, he is a very productive linebacker. But because of his size, is that why he's getting hurt so much? We don't know. We'll see how Vic Fangio uses him. But until he could stay healthy and play 15 games for the Eagles, 13 games for the Eagles, it's a 1 for me. That is a huge position of need for the Birds. And then interior defensive linemen, we've spent so many high picks on interior defensive linemen between Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. You know, they looked pretty good last year. Jalen Carter was amazing, ranked 6 out of 130 interior defensive linemen. Jordan Davis, 30 out of 130. Milton Williams, 32 out of 130. So I'm not addressing this position early in the draft at all. I give that a 7.5 to an 8 rating. These guys are pretty good. And then edge defender. Bryce Huff is now a Philadelphia Eagle, ranked 24 out of 112. Actually, BG, Brandon Graham, had an incredible year last year. Very productive when he was on the field, ranked 15th out of 112 edge defenders. Very, very impressive. Better than Josh Sweat and Reddick. Sweat was 56 and Reddick was 43. I give this a 7.5. It looks like Reddick is probably going to get traded. So depending on whether or not the Eagles trade him, they could potentially package him in a trade and get maybe a 3rd round pick, a late 2nd round pick for a guy like Reddick. All right, Bird Gang, that was my breakdown of the current 2024 roster of the Philadelphia Eagles as we get closer and closer to the draft, which is about 4 weeks away. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And let me know, are there any players that I missed that you think that can contribute to the Birds in this upcoming season? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Thanks again, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.